So we are starting webinar Revit drawings using Smart Dimensions and Smart Assemblies. My name is Valentis Balsevičius. I'm a structural engineer and BIM application engineer working in AGACAD. Our mission is building BIM together with our users to accelerate BIM in our industry. AGACAD is authorized Autodesk developer of different software for Revit. We are in the market more than 25 years and we sell all of our software worldwide in different countries. This is portfolio of our tools. We have different kind of tools, right? We have BIM Navigator over here for the management of parameters in project and in your families. When we have tools for precast concrete, elements modeling and documentation. When we have tools over here for the MEP engineers to cut openings based on the location of MEP elements. Then we have solutions for the wood framing and metal framing, which covers modeling and documentation and export to CNC machines. And then we have some small tools like to import Excel sheets into Revit and so on. But today I will talk about Smart Assemblies. So this tool is for the shop drawings for making automatic dimensions and then shop drawings of your elements. All right. And we are not alone. We have a lot of partners in different countries. So we have guys in Germany, in Netherlands, in Poland, in United Arab Emirates, and so on. So you can look for them in your country. Then, all right. So Smart Assemblies, it just creates a single entity of host element and details, and it creates shop drawings. It places automatically dimensions and places views on the sheet, and it creates gravity point and calculates assembly mass. But in this webinar, I would like to talk more about smart dimensions and smart assembly. So it's about the new dimension rules which are available from the June of 2018. So I will show you how to dimension with smart dimensions, how to dimension with smart assemblies, how to combine both of them, and how to use smart dimensions separately from smart assemblies. So yeah, we can switch to Revit. You should see my Revit window now. So this is my sample project. Usually I use precast concrete, but in general it's Revit family. It's Revit wall, it's Revit beam. It doesn't matter what's the purpose of this element. So this is all based on the views, on the configurations, and Revit elements, Revit families. On the right side, you see tools for BIM doc. This is a solution which you can download from our web page. So you go here, you go to the products you want to, and then you select that. You go to free trial, select the version of Revit you use. You download this tool, install it, and then you have it in your Revit, and you can just install any of our tools and have 2 weeks trial. All right. So today I'll talk about smart assemblies. I will use commands from here. All right. So in general, smart assemblies is a tool to create shop drawings, right? And to create shop drawings, we have shop drawing configurations for those who don't know. So I'm just gonna quickly show how smart assemblies is working. What's the main idea? So you have this shop drawing configuration window where you define how many views do you want to create, what should be the direction of the view, what should be the name of the view, what should be visibility settings, what should be dimension rules. Dimension rules are set separately here, how to dimension openings, how to dimension details, rebars, how to place nodes, and so on. Then you have settings for the schedules and for the sheet. What should be the title block, what should be the sheet template, how the view should be placed on the sheet. And then, for example, I will show really a common example in my webinars. when I have walls, and then I create assemblies from them. So what Smart Assemblies will do, it will take all the hosted details into one entity. It will create gravity point, as you see here. It will place dimensions, it will place views on the sheet, it will calculate the assembly mass, right? So now it's creating first assembly and then another one. So yeah, let's take a look. It will finish that and we'll see the result. Just to give you a brief introduction of how does it work. All right, let's go to the bottom in Revit project browser, and here we have assemblies created, and this is, for example, result of this assembly, automatic assembly, right? So we have some dimension lines. It's dimensioning Revit families, it's dimensioning host element, it's dimensioning nested or hosted details, and it's placing schedules or legends and notes and then 3D view, whatever you have in your settings. So you have this kind of result with Smart Assemblies, right? Now, today I will talk about Smart Dimensions, right? And it has like a separate command here on the configuration menu. So if you'll click on that, it will bring up separate floating menu and for the smart dimensions, right? And it has separate configuration window for dimensioning. So here you can select what do you want to dimension and how do you want to dimension. You define how it should be dimensioned here, right? So let me just quickly show you example of how what should be the result by using only smart dimensions, right? So for that, I'm gonna just draw the wall over here, right? For example, like this. So I'll draw the wall. Let's make it a little bit more unique. Let's say like this, right? I'll do it like this and maybe just add window here or something like that. All right, give me that window. Not very nice. Let's fix that. All right, so we have this kind of wall, right? I will place maybe just some kind of detail over here, maybe over here, maybe over here, right? And so the first difference, what I would like to say about smart dimensions, it can work separately, right? So as I said that probably in the beginning. So it means I don't need to create actually assembly if I want to create dimensions. So I can make just a section, and now I have already one configuration created. So I will do it like this. And you see, I use this command to dimension elements in view, and that's it. I have dimensions based on my configurations. So it's not even assembly, right? So it means it can work as a separate software, like a separate tool. It can be used in any view, right? So here's one of the results. But what I see here, I don't have a dimension for this cut. I don't have dimension for this opening because we don't have that in Smart Dimensions. And my nodes are overlapping. They don't look nice to me. So that's why I will show you how it could be used together with Smart Assemblies. All right. So for that, I'm gonna just go to shop drawn configurations of Smart Assemblies. All right, let's take a look over here. This is default configuration of Smart Assemblies. Let's duplicate that and I'll call it, let's say, all right, so webinar. So this will be webinar configuration. I'm gonna just probably leave one view to be created, this view template, right, and then dimension rule. So this time I will not, I will use, okay, example dimension, and I will duplicate this dimension rule um, as as dim. So I'll call it like this, and here under hosted metal details, I will select to use smart dimensions. So here I can select my configuration which I want to use for dimensioning of hosted metal details. So when I select this to use smart dimensions with smart assemblies, these settings will have no influence for dimensioning of details, right? So you can leave it whatever you want. These settings also will not have influence. Everything will come from smart dimensions. Grouping of dimensions still will be valid from smart assemblies, so you can really still use it. What else is changing when we use that? Dimensioning of openings, it still comes from smart assemblies, so you should use these settings if you want to dimension your openings, right? All right, so then we have the same for the hosted concrete details. We can select that and use smart dimensions configurations instead of smart assemblies. For rebars, it's not changing because it still remains controlled by smart assemblies. And in dimensioning priority and nodes, what is changing when we use smart dimensions? Well, text node parameter, it comes from smart dimensions configurations. Text node text, it comes from smart dimensions configurations, and quantity, it also comes from smart dimensions configurations. But you can switch off node from here, and you can switch off dimensioning at all from here. So so couple of changes have influence with smart dimensions here. For all the other elements, the nodes and the information is still valid from this window. What is important here also that total dimension, right? So you can dimension total dimension with smart assemblies. So it gives total dimension of host element. But you can also use total dimension from smart dimensions. Over here you have settings for total dimension. And if you will use these settings, it will give dimension of all the elements which are selected to be included in total dimension. So it means it can give you total dimension not only of host element but all the elements which are visible in the view. Okay, so it's also important what kind of total dimensions you want to use. Usually if you have just one wall and then hosted details or one beam with hosted details, so it's okay to use smart assemblies total dimension. And then node positioning, node positioning, it comes from smart assemblies. It gives you this kind of node underline, a nice underline, and you can have separate dimension lines on each edge, or you can connect them. So it's up to you what are the settings used from smart assemblies. All right, so let's take a look what changes will it give to us. So did I select this configuration, right, for the dimensioning of smart details? So I need to select this configuration of dimension rule over here for the front view, right? So I'll save it, and then now I will create assembly from this wall, but for that I need to have mark, right? So I will add mark value here and then create assembly. From the window I will select the configuration which I want to use. All right, so this configuration should be used, so I will create this and we will see what's the difference from this result when I used only smart dimensions. All right, So let's go down, find this wall, go to the front view, and you see the difference is like this. We have this these nodes, they are not overlapping. We have this connected connection of dimension lines. So it depends on how do you do that in your country, but for some of you it's a must. And then here I have a dimension for the openings, right? I have dimension for this opening, for that opening. So that's the mixed result of smart assemblies and smart dimensions. And one thing you can notice here is that I have different dimension line for one of the details, and that is thanks to smart dimensions. With only with smart assemblies you cannot do that. So okay, that's the difference between these tools. And now I would like to just go in details about the smart dimensions, how it will be used. All right, so I'm gonna probably just do it like this. Maybe I'll just move it a little bit more. And then I will just disassemble this maybe, and all right. Let's go to the plan view. And okay, maybe I'll just do like this. We will go to this view and we will just go through all the settings we have in smart dimensions. All right. Okay, so what do we have here? So actually I'm gonna just delete these notes. All right, I don't need this section. And I'm gonna remove this one. All right, let's go to smart dimensions configurations and let's analyze everything we have here. So on the top we have options to create and save our configurations, right? So if I'm gonna create just a new configuration, just give it a new name, call it like webinar. All right, so I'll call it like this. So this will be my configuration. Now on the left side I have different elements which I want to dimension, right? So in this view I want to dimension wall and I want to dimension these families, Revit families. So these Revit families, they are face-based families. So for face-based families we have this tab, and for walls we have this tab, right? So I will move them closer to the top. I will just drag them, so it also means that this dimension line will be closer to the edge, to the side of elements, right? So like priority of dimensions. And here I can, on the right side, I can define how do I want to dimension something in the view. Maybe a few words about these on the left. So you see it's point and phase based details and dim 1 in the brackets. So what does it mean? It means that we have 3 of them. So it's just because if we have many details, we want to filter them, maybe we want to group them by different parameters. So we can have a couple of rules for that. And what does it mean, phase-based details? It means that this family is created on generic model phase-based Revit family template, right? So these rules will apply for such families. If I go here, you see a hosted point-based details. So all of these rules will apply to the families which were created on generic model, wall-based or floor-based or roof-based families, right? This one is for generic model family template. And then, yeah, structural framing is pretty straightforward. Columns, ducts, pipes, whatever you have in the view. Line-based, yeah, it's based on the generic model line-based family. So you decide what should be dimensioned. All right, so let's take a look to the right side of the screen. So now I want to dimension phase-based details, right? So I have common settings where I can group them, I can filter that, I have a couple of other options, but we will get back to that later on. Text node settings, so these are the settings what should be displayed in the text node. So we can define what should be the text type, what should be offset, and what should be included in the text node. And here we have similar tabs where we define how to dimension details on the front face. So in this example, I have one detail on front face of this view. And then here I have this detail on the horizontal edge. So over here, I should create some settings for the horizontal edge, and vertical side edges. I don't have any details here. So this would be if the details would be placed over here. And it's really dependent on the view. So this detail looks like front view in this view, but but in the section view it would be on the vertical side. So we'll get there. Let's start from simple things. So in each of these tabs we have horizontal dimensions and vertical dimensions, right? So here if I want to have horizontal dimension, I need to check this one, measure with position. And then I need to select what should be measured. So left edge of a solid, right edge of both edges, then location point. So this is insert point of the family, and model lines. So model lines, it's just if you have model lines inside your family. All right. So let's say I want to measure location point, and I want to have horizontal dimension, right? And I will just save it, and I'll just click on OK. And now I will dimension elements in view, all the elements I have in the view, right? But in this case, I have just wall. So I'm just gonna click on dimension. And what do I have now? You see, I have this one, and it's a total dimension, which I have in configuration, and it gives me the total distance of all the elements which I am dimensioning, because I'm dimensioning now only details. So the total dimension is giving me like a boundary of these details in the view, right? Then this dimension line gives me one point at the location line of the detail and another one to the boundaries of all the total boundaries of elements we are dimensioning, right? So it doesn't look very nice. I really would like to get this dimension from the wall. So I need to include wall to be in the total dimensioning. So I will go back to configurations, go back to the wall tab, and the only thing I will do here is I will include wall into the total dimension. I will save configuration, click on OK, and run the update. All right, so you see now this dimension line is dimensioning to the wall because now it's included to be in the total dimensions. And the total dimensions is also giving me now the wall as a total dimension, right? So it's pretty good, but you see I have same details here, and actually dimension lines, I have separate dimension lines for each of them. So it's not what I want to see, because if I will have 10 details, I will have 10 dimension lines, right? So it's not really nice. I will go back to configurations, to the front face details, and select join dimension lines. Save it, click on OK, and update. And you'll see these are joined now. So that's pretty cool. Also, so let's take a look to other options. Let's create a couple of more details here. Run the update. So you see we are dimensioning now all of them also. But okay, I'm just gonna click on modify, and here we have option to measure only first and last element. So if I'm gonna select this, click on OK, so you see it will just dimension the first one and the last one. So that's the option for that. Then I use modify dimensions it just updates the settings for this particular view just at this particular moment. So it didn't make changes to my configuration. If I will click save, so then I will make changes to configuration. Now, what if I will select this one, disconnect from total dimension point? All right, so let's do that. And you will see that now dimension line, it just gives the dimension between details, but it just removed that part from dimension from total dimensions, right? Still total dimension is okay, but the details are not connected to the total dimensions. Okay, so all right, so I'm gonna update the dimension. Let's go to configurations. What else do we have here? So the position of the dimension, so it could be on bottom, on top, so it's pretty straightforward, right? But we can also choose this option by element. So what does it mean by element? Let's see if I will update. And you see now this dimension line is not dimensioning this one, it's just dimensioning these elements, and this one is dimensioning this one, because it's like placing dimension line on the nearest side. So this one is near to the top, and this one is near to the bottom. So that's the reason for that setting, for the by element, right? Then another option is to measure by measure, to place dimensions by measure. All right, let's save it and click on OK and update. So how will it look like? So now it will place actually dimension line close to the details. It will neglect the position, like it will not place outside the boundaries. It will place just close to the details, because these details, and it gives just one dimension lines for all of them. So again, in some situations it might be useful, right? So but I'm gonna probably just stick to this option by element and update. All right. Now, what else? If I'm gonna create this kind of detail, right? But I will choose different type. I'm gonna use this different type, and then I will place two of them, and I'm gonna update dimensions now. So what I have here is I have dimension line for all of them. I have one dimension line. So for some of you it's okay because you do it in this way, but let's say in Canada, right? But in Sweden you want to separate that, for example. So what you need to do is you need to use some common settings or grouping. So we have two ways to group elements. We have grouping in common settings, so we can group by selected type parameter here, or we can group just, let's say, only front details, so we can select it here, and we can, let's say, skip the grouping for other elements. But so there are two options, let's say, grouping as a separate details for the front face, for the side face separately, or just in common settings, choosing by type. It will group my details by type. So if I'm gonna, yeah, I saved that, click on OK, run the update. So you will see that now I have dimension line for one type of details and dimension line for other type of details. Right, so it's pretty cool. Now, still I'm missing information. What kind of details did I created here? So let's go back to configuration one more time. Actually, I'm gonna just also add vertical dimension line for the front details. I will also make it the same settings. And here are the settings for the text node. What do we want to add here? Let's say I will add a random letter here, right? And actually, if I'm adding information here, it's actually related to these settings. So it's really important to prepare, first of all, what should be included in the text node. So here are available parameters, and here I just added what should be included in the text node. So text node is the information from this area. So you just type your text in any of these tabs. Then text node parameter is information which comes from here. You define what type of information should be added here. So these are type parameters. And then quantity, but quantity actually is different from Smart Assemblies. It gives you the number of witness lines. It's not the number of details. So I usually don't use this parameter. All right, what else do we have here? We have offset value, it's horizontal. Actually, offset text node position and create text nodes. If you use smart dimensions separately, then it's okay. You have to set these. But if you use that together with Smart Assemblies, these settings are overwritten by Smart Assemblies settings. All right, just keep that in mind. But if I work only with Smart Dimensions, then I need to set these values. So offset is horizontal offset for the node, which will be horizontal from the end of the dimension. Then it could be aligned with just above the dimension line or in the center of dimension line, and we need to check this to create. And then yes, this one will be created. I selected to create this one and this one also, right? I don't use any prefix and suffix in this moment, but let's do it like this. Let's save it, click on OK, and run the update. All right, so you see, I have now notes, information about my details. So that's okay. If I'm gonna go to configurations, what else do I have here? All right, so in these, I probably explained every single of them, but we should go through these settings a little bit more. So we have grouped elements, but we have possibility to filter elements. So let's say if I'm gonna filter elements by type, and I'm gonna filter type which contains 200, for example, and click on OK and run the update. So you will see that now this smaller detail is not dimensioned because it doesn't have any 200 in the type name, right? And this one, it has 200 in the type name. So I can filter that, right? Then let's go back to configuration again. So with this tab, let's say I dimensioned only these elements, right? But maybe I would like to dimension other elements as well, but I would like to use different dimension style. I would like to dimension all of them without just by at the location point, just measure them, join dimension lines, position at the bottom at the left, for example. I will not place any text nodes because I'm really not separating them by type in this case. Just let's save it, click on OK, and update dimensions, right? So what you see here now is that I have dimension between details, right? So I used one tab for that and another tab to dimension all the elements, but I use different dimension style here, right? So you see that's another opportunity. Now let's go and do one more thing. I'm just gonna select this one and I will okay, let's turn around and then let's add a couple of these details on the other side. So where is my view? Let's go to the view. What other options do I have in configurations? Let's go to configurations. Here I have options to dimension. Okay, I will remove the filter actually. All right, so just dimension everything now, but I want to dimension only details which are in the front view with these settings. So, and I'm gonna add, let's say, this kind of text note for them. So this will be like front face, right? Okay, and update details. And now you will see that this one, it's not dimensioned. I don't have vertical line for that. And this one is also not dimensioned. You see, I don't have vertical line, I don't have horizontal line, just this one. So yeah, so you can separate front face and back face details. Okay, so let's do it one more time. Let's go here and actually let's change dimension style. Let's dimension only back details, and yeah, group them by type maybe this time. Okay, and okay, one more thing I forgot to change. So in this one, it's back details, right? So let's add the back face like a text note for that. All right, type and create and for and aligned and text note parameter. Right, so I think it's okay what I wanted to do. Just run the update. And yeah, so now I have this dimension line only for back face details, right? And it gives me the prefix or text node BF, and for others I have front face. So that's another option, right? And configurations of smart dimensions. Then what is this one? What does it mean? It's we have option to dimension all elements in the view or just elements which are crossed by section line or which are not crossed by section line. So what do I mean is that if I'm gonna um, if I have yeah if I have section, so in this section I can define if I want to dimension only details which are crossed by section line, so only this one, or all the others which are not crossed by section line. And then yeah, so or should I dimension all of them? So that's the reason for this setting. Here I can just move if I want to, first of all, place dimension line for vertical side elements or horizontal side elements. So I can just arrange that by dragging them. And yeah, so that's it probably about all the configurations in smart dimensions. But as I have a section already created, I want to show you one thing, just to make sure that you get the idea, is that in this view, if I'm gonna run the same configuration which I have used in previous view, you see I have only total dimensions. And why is that? Is because now it's not front face details. Now they are vertical side details. So if I want to get these dimensions, I have to use this setting. So I want to have vertical dimension, location line on the right side. So in this case, I have to use this configuration, right? So just keep in mind that it's not how it's in the model, it's not how it's on which face of the element. It depends on how does it look in this view, in the view where you create your dimension lines. All right, so I'll quickly take a look to the questions maybe you had. So the question is about if there's available manual. So You have manual for Smart Assemblies. You can find them in help page. If you'll click on here, it will bring you straight to the web page, right? You have some information here, some technical documentation and videos, but for Smart Dimensions, I'm still working on it. I hope next week I will have this file about Smart Dimensions. So it will cover everything I'm talking about now. And I have a note that no audio, but I guess that was just not issue for everyone. Is it possible to create smart dimensions just around generic model phase-based family in different section views? Yeah, probably. I will show you a couple of things about separate dimensions, okay? What about the MEP elements, how we should be dimensioned, right? So there's a question about it. Okay, I'm not sure if I can do that now, but actually, if I have a system and I have a conduit, and maybe I'll just draw something like some diameter. Can we change that? All right, so I have this one. I don't know how to modify that. Can I just change that like this? All right, so let's say I have conduit. I don't know. Do I have a switch? Let's say I have a switch for that. And what if I will update dimensions? So for the switch, yeah, for the switch probably I get that because switch is created as a phase-based family. So I have this one, but for the conduit, probably I need to go to the configurations and I have conduits, right? So it's vertical element in my case, and I want to have a vertical dimension for that. I want to measure top and bottom, place let's say on the right side, and then yeah, at the left edge, no location line probably, and at the bottom. So if I'm gonna save it and click on OK and just run the update. Yeah, so now I have this dimension line and I have this one, or which one? Is it the switch? I'll just remove that switch maybe. Yeah, so we have dimension line for the conduit and so on. So for wider application area, we can discuss that, or you can try it on your own, right? But if you have questions, just drop an email to us. Can you predefine section locations and smart assemblies? Probably that's the question. So you cannot predefine that in the beginning, but you see when I created the smart assembly, this one is already in some particular location. And the reason for that is when you create first assembly, then you can define the location of it. So let's say like this, you can modify the far clip offset value, right? And then you, in configurations, when you set this to be as a template sheet, this assembly, so the next assembly, the view location will be as it is in this assembly. So if you choose here to use this sheet as assembly, for next assemblies the location will be copied as it is in here, right? So that was the question. But yeah, I would like to actually continue, right? We have questions, but I see we have them quite a lot, so I will leave them for the end of webinar, or just we can contact later. Because I want to really show you just a couple of more examples. Okay, so I'm gonna select this wall and move it here. Let's change that. Let's change it. Let's change the type, and then okay, I'm gonna use another tool which we have. So I'm gonna frame this wall, with light gauge steel elements. So it will create structural framing elements. So so I'm gonna show you what's the difference with smart assemblies and smart dimensions. So here you see I have a wall and so on. So if I'm gonna just give it a mark for this wall, and if I will try to create assembly for this wall, all right, and let's use just example shop drawing configuration, default configuration. So you will see the result, what assemblies would create in default way. But also I would like to show you, yeah. So okay, assembly is created. If I will isolate that, you will see that this kind of assembly is created. So I don't have any additional elements here, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just disassemble it. And what I will do, I will select all of the elements, create Revit assembly, right? I will call it like this. So this will be a Revit assembly, but with starting from June, smart assemblies can be applied on Revit assemblies. So now I'm selecting this one, selecting configuration. Where is it? Configuration, and I'm gonna apply that. Okay, let's wait until it will create. It will try to calculate assembly mass, calculate gravity point, place dimensions, and place everything. Yep, in the defined order in the configurations. But I'm just gonna show you what's the difference if we use smart assemblies and if we use smart dimensions. So how can we improve results and apply that for different things? All right, so this is it looks like this. A2, okay, here, and let's go to the front view. So in this case, I have all the framing elements inside assembly, but dimensions goes on the total and for the openings, right? Because in smart assemblies, we cannot dimension many elements. Like they are not hosted details, they are structural framing families. Um, Still, we have one dimension here for this element, this structural framing family, but it has model line inside, so that's why we have dimension line. But if I'm gonna just duplicate this view, right, and I will apply only smart dimensions. So let's say I will create new configuration, rename it framing. All right, and now I'm gonna go to this tab. What I want to do is that I have horizontal elements, horizontal structural framing element and vertical, right? So I'm gonna go to horizontal elements. I want to place only vertical dimension for horizontal elements. Then I can measure different things for structural framing elements. Bottom, top edge, bottom and top, and location line, or this is special for the light gauge steel families. So I'm gonna, actually I'm gonna select this one to solid face. And then I'm gonna place that by, all right, so on the right side, and dimension type, we can set separate dimension type for each of them for structural framing. And vertical elements. For vertical elements, I want to have just horizontal one, and I want to, again, dimension only this one, and I want to place that at the bottom. So I'm just gonna save it, click on OK. Dimension elements in the view, framing, dimension. And what do we have here? We have dimension line for the vertical elements and dimension line for the horizontal elements, which is giving me the solid edge or the web of my elements. So you see, we have that. And if we could combine that with smart assemblies, I would get also dimension of openings and so on, right? So yeah, you see how it could be applied. Then another thing, let's go here. What do I have in this project? I have some floors like this, right? And columns, and I have some wall panels, let's say. So let's take a look what we can do here. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna just create. Yeah, let's make it call out because I want to dimension all of them here. Um, hide that, and I wanna dimension floors, right? And grids. So I'm gonna go to configurations, create new, rename floors. All right, I want to dimension floor. So actually yeah, they are at the bottom, so I'm gonna just drag it to the top, the floor, and I want to dimension grids also. So I'm gonna drag this also to the top. So floors, right? Floors, I don't know why, but I need to go to horizontal elements, okay? So you do the same if you want to try that. I want to dimension that, and I want to just dimension top and bottom, left and right, and anything. I don't want any. Actually, yeah, maybe I'll choose by measure, so it will be close to my floors, horizontal elements. All right, and the grids. I want to dimension grids. I want to dimension them. Yeah, that's probably it. And I don't know, by element maybe. I will save it like this. Okay, and then all right, maybe I will just dimension everything here, right? So what's the result? I have some dimension lines for these floors. So horizontal, vertical, these are overlapping because yeah, it's different dimensions. This one and this one, so I have them overlap, but I have dimension line for the grid lines, right? It's dimension to this main floor and so on. So yeah, let's delete that. Let's delete that. Another way. Select that, and you see here we have dimension selected element. So if I'm gonna click that, same configuration, and what do I have? All right, so I have double dimension. So I don't wanna have that. This is total dimension actually. So I will turn that off. Okay, save it and update. All right, so it's better, right? So I have both of these. And yeah, so if I'm gonna select these, let's say dimension selected, elements, dimension, right? Yeah, so something like this could be achieved also. Then another one. I'm gonna create floor, just draw the boundary like this. For example, I don't know, maybe like this. All right, maybe it's enough. Okay. So I just want to show you another thing. All right, so my boundary is cutting my floor. Okay, so now I see it. So another command is dimension element, one single element, and it's a little bit different. It has very small configuration here. It can dimension total dimensions and it can dimension openings. We have separate dimension line and offset from the element. This factor has influence. What should be the distance? Let's say, I don't know, we can make it like this. And then if I'm going to use this command, dimension element, select this element, and what's that result? So you see, I have this one, I have this one, so I don't know. Again, in some situations, maybe the question was about like if you can just dimension generic element in the view, right? So maybe in some situations you have like, I don't know, stone architectural detail or steel connection plate, right? So you can just click on it and try to get some automation here. So yeah, so something like this, right? Let's do the last one, maybe example. I will go here to this one, and I'm gonna hide again the crop view. And I have walls, simple walls, Revit walls here, right? So if I wanna dimension them, I'm just gonna call it like wall. Oh, sorry. All right. Anyway, let's leave it like this. Let's drag wall over here. Yeah, horizontal walls. So this will be like horizontal elements, right? So measure them. Oh no, I don't want to have horizontal. I want, or do I want to have? Yeah, actually for horizontal, this time I want to measure horizontal, and I want to measure left and right, and I want to measure by measure. I want to have dimension line close to my walls, right? So I'm gonna use this option. And then I'm gonna use vertical dimensions, bottom and edge, and by measure. And I'm gonna remove total dimensions like this, click on OK, save, and all right. And let's try to, yeah, dimension all of them here in this view. And you'll see, yeah, at least something we can have, right? This one is dimensioning this one. I don't know, maybe the scale is not really great over here, but yeah, so I have some dimensions. So the left edge, the right edge, and then I have dimension of the wall, and it goes like this. Maybe you will need some improvements. Maybe you'll have some grid lines, but that's an option, right? So you can also use that for the plans, for the sections, for elevations. I don't know. So that's probably what I wanted to show you today. To explain all the configurations we have, how it could be used together. So as I said previously, you can take free trial for 2 weeks. Just download these tools for BIM doc, install Smart Assemblies, and yeah, download it and use it. Try it. If you have questions, contact us at support at AGACAD. All right, so thank you for attention. Have a good day, and bye-bye.
AGACAD, building BIM together.